Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Wild Woman Podcast. I have an extraordinary guest with me today. Really delighted to have Mary McCauley. Meylora Moon is her professional name that she uses to the podcast. And I want to start by just sharing how I met Mary, because it's a really beautiful story and experience. And I'll ask Mary to share her perspective of it, because to me, it's a sign of the extraordinary times we're living in. We really are living in awakening times of remembering. That's how I'm experiencing it. And it is challenging at times. And a lot of difficult things can come up for us, and a lot of darkness, and a lot of, so and there's a lot going on right now. So I think for me, it's really important that we talk about this. And Meylora, sorry, I'll call you because I'm just drawn to call you that now. Has a huge amount to share on this in terms of her own life experience and what she now does. But it was 2 years ago, roughly. I was up on the hill of Tara in Ireland. It's a sacred site up north of Dublin, and I'd never been there. And in all of my 57 years, it's funny, I'd never been there, but I felt the calling to go up. And that day I went with a friend I had only met a little bit before that. And we walked in and we came to the first, I think it's the Mound of Hostages. And it's quite a small enough area, it felt. We walked, and then I got this feeling I need to go up this hill. And we went up, just as a little sort of a mound, and walked up to, or climbed up a little to the top of it. And at the top, I can remember looking around Ireland, and you could see from so high and saying, what is that hill over there? And next minute, this American voice said, I know that's the Hill of Slane, I think is what you said. And then a conversation started, and so much more. Sometimes I don't even know how long we were there. It felt like a moment, and it could have been a few hours. I really feel we went through some sort of portal, but it was a very special meeting for me. It feels like, um, yeah, I'll ask Meylora now to talk about her experience, but something happened in that moment. And as the conversation unfolded, she started to channel for us. And it was just the most heart, heart-filled experience. It was life-changing, really, really
Oh, you're too
life-changing.
kind.
Pardon?
You're too kind.
I'm going to let Meylora speak now, but that was 2 years ago. And then we stayed. Just recently, I got an email. I must have been on her newsletter, and I didn't connect it was the same person until I went and followed the loop. And then I saw it was her website, and we reconnected. And so we are here talking today. So welcome, Meylora.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very happy to be here. I'm so excited to speak with you and to all your listeners. I remember that day on the Hill of Terror very well, like it happened yesterday. It moved me as much as it did you in just amazing ways. I absolutely believe that that was a pivotal moment in my spiritual journey. I was visiting some friends in Ireland who were spiritually minded. They were, in a lot of different spiritual circles and things like that. And I've come to find out that many who, well, some, we'll say some who call themselves light workers are actually what I know as gaslight workers. I call them gaslight workers now because they project one thing, but do the opposite. So I had been with this group of people for several weeks and I was feeling so down, so troubled about the the lack of connection I was having with this group who said they were spirit. I traveled to Ireland to share the spirit with them, to meditate and to do this kind of thing. And that's not what I found. And I was at a very vulnerable time in my life. I was a new channel. I had just very recently experienced a shift and I felt so alone, so lonely, so confused about myself and what was happening. And I was just desperate to find a connection to somebody else who could share my experience or validate it. Really, I was looking for validation. I didn't realize it at the time, but I just felt like I had this wonderful thing that has happened to me, and everybody was going to respond so positively to it. And that just is not what happened at all. So I was feeling like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do with myself? What am I supposed to
Mm.
do with this spiritual movement that I've been given? And so I was at the Hill of Terror with my friends, and they had walked away. They had left me there. They had gone off together, and I couldn't keep up. I'm short, and they're kind of tall, and they walk really, really fast. And I was always just trailing, just left a trail behind and to catch up. And I just said, this time, I'm not going to chase after them. I'm not going to run after them. I'm going to just stay here. And I felt the sinking in my heart. And then I looked around and I saw you and your friend standing on the mound, which was a little bit away from me. So the mound, maybe a dozen people on this mound would feel crowded, so it's not
Yes.
very big. And I said, I'm going to go over there. I was so desperate to just be with another person who accepted me. To say, you're a human on this earth, and we accept you. Even just if you hadn't said anything, I would have been fine. So I went up on the hill, and that's exactly how it happened. I remember you saying, I wonder what that tower is over there. And for some reason, I knew that it was the Hill of Slain, and that was just like a little esoteric knowledge that I had just come across recently. And so I was like thrilled. I'm like, oh, she wants to talk about the tower. So it was a wonderful point of connection, and it absolutely changed my life, because even though I did start channeling, which, at that time I wasn't able to control it very well, so it would happen spontaneously, and I didn't know how to filter it, how to stop it, how to align it, which was
Mm.
another source of my isolation. I really couldn't be out among people too often because I never knew when it would start. And I mean, I looked like a crazy person.
Mm.
But there were messages that were coming through for you and your friend, and you weren't afraid. You didn't look at me like I'm crazy. You
Hungry
accepted.
for it.
Yes, and you told me that it was a gift, and I never thought of it that way. I mean, I knew this thing had happened to me, but at that point, I was really kind of angry and sad that it had, because I felt like I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what
Mm.
I'm supposed to do with this. People
Mm.
are not responding well to this at all. But you did, just the one person, you saw my heart, and it changed my life completely, Celine. It did. I left Ireland the very next day. I said, I don't need to stay out my time here with these people. I'm under no obligation to do this. And I went home and I began to embrace what happened to me as a gift. And I thank you for
Oh, well, thank you. Thank
that.
you so much, because it was a huge gift to me, because I didn't realize that there was. And even now, as we're speaking, it's like it activated a part of me that I feel I've been searching for all my life, in
Mm,
that I have found it hard to, I've said it to other people. It's only now I can begin to say it, because again, I thought there was something wrong with me, even though I've lived a life, in banking, and then I was in a university and all these sort of intellectual places. I never felt at home. I never felt I always felt there's something more that's available, but I can't seem to access it, or I don't even know how to articulate it. So meeting someone, it was like, oh, that's what it is. So it was like a recognition.
yeah.
I think that's what it was as well. It was just and it was time. I was being called there without knowing. So I think this
Mhm.
is the beauty of the times we're living in. And for people listening, just the synchronicities. It's challenging, and we'll talk. And Meylora will share as well just some of her story and maybe do some channeling for us. And it is a challenging time for many, because there is a lot of darkness maybe within ourselves and in the world,
Yeah.
and it's coming up, as I experience it, to be cleared so the light can shine, more light can come in. And So what I want to ask you first, Meylora, is so prior to this, just to give a little bit of a backstory to how this unfolded, because there may be others starting to feel gifts come online and
Yes,
be quite
yes,
scared, because I get a little scared sometimes. I'm feeling things coming through and I'm going,
yes.
I sometimes don't know what to do with them. So maybe if you can share a little bit about prior, what led, was there, I think you were ill, so maybe yeah, you just share what led to this, and then maybe how you when you went back to America, you worked with your gifts.
Well, I experienced, what can be called a shift in consciousness and awakening and enlightenment. I mean, there's different words for it in different religious and philosophical traditions, but I'll just call it a shift, just to keep it easy. So, I experienced my shift in January of 2019, and it was spontaneous, which I've come to find out is a little bit unusual. There was nothing really leading up to it. It was nothing I was asking for, seeking. I was a professional woman most of my life. I've been in the field of education, in the field of psychology. I've earned a PhD. I've been a therapist. I've always done something with human services, but I was never a religious person per se. I was raised Catholic, so my tradition is Christian. My background is Christian. Um, but I was not a practicing that real. I was what you call a Christmas and Easter Christian.
A la carte.
If I felt like it, I'll go to church on Christmas and maybe Easter if I felt like it. But there was not. I didn't really have any spiritual or religious habits, that I followed. I always believed in something greater than myself that you can call God. I was never a non-believer. Um, my path was influenced a little bit by my father, who was a Jesuit priest before he married my mother. And then he actually became an atheist during the course of his life. When I was a teenager, he became an atheist, very strident atheist. And so I was introduced to the dichotomy of piousness and its opposite in one person. I could see how beliefs can change. One can go from being very devout to rejecting of all matters of spirit, in a single lifetime. So this had an impact on me. Um, I'm not sure what year it was, but about 10 years before my shift, I began experiencing pain and depression. So it was physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain. And the physical pain was very real. It was all over my body, particularly in my joints. And I began to have um, a rash when I went out into the sun. I would get a rash within minutes, um, which was terrible for me because I loved being outside and I loved being in the sun. And so I was diagnosed with systemic lupus, which is an autoimmune disease, which has, some of these symptoms. It feels like, to me, it felt like rheumatoid arthritis with chronic fatigue syndrome on top of it. I was just always tired, always in pain. And I had to stop my teaching job, which I loved, but I just could no longer do it. I was consuming just Red Bull and coffee all day long. And I was just wrecking my body to stay in this job. And I was depressed. The pain caused me to be depressed. And I began to just see the world as not a very kind place to be. So I was out of work for about 10 years before my shift. I was unable to work physically. And I was living by myself. My children were grown and out of the house. And I'd reached a point of sort of acceptance of it all, that I guess I'm going to have to live with this pain the rest of my life. I won't be able to work. I'll need to just figure out something to do. And then at that moment in 2019, the political situation in my country, the United States, had reached a point where it affected me. It put me in a mindset that I can only describe as suicidal, but I don't want to kill myself. So I was in this limbo of I don't want to be on this planet anymore. I don't want to bear witness to what's going to happen. I cannot stand watching the world destroy itself. I cannot take this hatred and violence and separation anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. But I had no desire to kill myself. So I wasn't going to do that. I knew I wasn't going to do that. And really thank God for that, that I did not have that impulse, because this takes out many, many people when they get to this existential level. You really have a choice. You're faced with a singular choice on your spiritual journey that it all boils down to every time. Are you going to live or are you going to die? And I chose life only because I didn't take myself out. So I don't like it. I don't want it. I reject it, but I'll choose it. I don't know how that happened. I'll just say grace. So this was sort of my frame of mind. And I felt like this may have contributed to my shift as well. Maybe my system was ready then to expand itself. You know, if I said, I reject everything I'm seeing, I reject everything I'm seeing in the external world that's causing me pain, it's causing me suffering, it's causing me grief and sadness. And it wasn't so much for me because nothing was really happening to me other than my own personal pain. You know what I mean? But
Mm.
this took me out of myself. Like the pain of the world was greater to me than my own physical pain that I was experiencing every day. I could live with that. I had learned to live with that. But
But do you
this,
think they were connected? Sorry, Melora. Were they
yeah,
connected for you? Now, can you look back and say your physical pain was connected with what you were witnessing, or do you see them in any way as connected?
see this as preparing my body
Okay.
for the energetic shift that was going to happen.
Ah, okay.
Because
Right.
when I was first diagnosed with lupus, I wasn't having mental, emotional, physical pain. The world was in a different spot. It was in a pretty good
Mm.
spot. It wasn't like it is today. You know, this would have been 25 years ago,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
about 25 years ago that I was diagnosed with lupus. And so, as I understand it now, there, when we inhabit energies from the spiritual world, or when we allow these other higher or more expanded levels of awareness and consciousness, which are, you know, it's a living part of, you know, consciousness to enter our bodies, our energetic structures have to adapt to that. And so we are simply collections of atoms. You know, at our heart, we are atoms that have achieved some level of consciousness and formed in this body, and then cells, then the flesh comes upon the atoms and things like that. So the energy, because it is at the center of every atom, ATOM, it is at the center of everything that we are, it affects everything. You know, it affects all of our physical systems and things like that. So I
Mm.
really believe it was a way of rebalancing, or perhaps bringing into balance my energetic being, so that I'm able to do what I do now, which I believe was something that was decided in the spiritual world. I believe that for everybody. I don't think there's
Yeah.
anything special about me. We all decide how we want to experience ourselves as spiritual beings on earth. And this is just choice or whatever that I made in the spiritual realm to have this happen to me.
Yes. No, I
It's
just find that a very interesting because I would have looked at my illness or often, they say disease often is preceded by dis-ease, like a general disease with
yes,
yourself of maybe not living in accordance with who you came here to be and you're sort of it's time to move on. I often felt that with myself, but I just find that's very interesting what you say that it sort of like was an energetic preparation for you for what was to come. I haven't really thought about it that way, even though I personally did feel I experienced an expansion through my illness and an awakening. But
mm,
yeah, that's sort of an interesting. So it can be just coming on as a preparation to expand and shift in consciousness.
yes. I would say for
Okay.
the most part, I would say for most people, this is true. Some people call this ascension symptoms, which is fine. I understand what they mean. You know, as a planet, we're not standing still in the cosmos. We're hurtling through the universe at
Mm.
incredible rates of speed, and we're moving at in different points of the universe all the time. And so we are exposed to different forces depending on where we are in that grid, that space-time grid. And at this time, we are being exposed to certain forces, some people call them portals, whatnot, this is fine too, that allow these energies of really evolution to enter us, to come through. And a lot of spiritual traditions use the metaphor of the butterfly, the caterpillar to the butterfly. So we are in the cocoon right now and we are being squeezed. We are outgrowing our planet. We are outgrowing our cocoon. We are like, this is too much. This is too much. I can't take it anymore. Something has to break. And in this
Mhm.
breaking of the shell of the cocoon, this is what we're experiencing right now. And it's painful. It's interpreted by us as pain and suffering. And because we're, in the darkness, in the womb, in the cocoon, we can't see, and most people cannot see and they can't hear. They can only feel what's going on, in the extra. They feel these things. They feel the noise or the thunder or whatever it is that's outside, but they can't interpret it because they have no experience with it yet. So they interpret it as pain and suffering. Somebody's doing this to me. Something beyond my control, something greater than me is punishing me. They're doing this to me. They're keeping me down. They're torturing me. They're making me suffer. And it's a feeling of helplessness, but we must understand that we are in control of the process, meaning that it is what we ask to experience, and nothing is happening to us per se, unless we choose to entertain that as a reality. And some do, and that's perfectly okay. There are as many versions of reality as there are minds.
Yes.
I would ask you and my listeners to consider, how many minds are there? We'll start with Earth. How many minds on Earth? The question might be 8 billion plus, right? So
Mm.
from my point of view, there is only one mind, and it is the universal mind, the universe, the one word. There's just one
Mm.
word, as it was in the beginning, as it will always be, one. So we are all expressions of that one. And some of us choose to say, well, I'd like to express myself as my own God for a little while longer. Okay. So they choose to embrace realities where they're still oppressed or where death is still possible. Death is accepted, and this is okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not a bad choice. It's not evil. It's not, oh, there's something wrong with you. It's simply, we are free to choose our expression of that one mind.
Mm.
We are free to say, to choose. And each one is unique. Each one has a unique set of eyes and a unique set of experience. And there is not one that's better or more exalted than the other. It is a process that we are going through collectively. And this is what was.
Mm. And are we all making our way back at some point to that one mind? Like, is that inevitable for everyone?
It is inevitable. So there are different interpretations of making your way back, um, because of the way this universe is formed, um, which is space and time. Science cannot define this because the word defines itself, right? Time cannot be defined without space. Space cannot be defined without time, and neither can be defined without referring back to the word itself. So, because we are in this space of time, we are born into matter, meaning atomic structures. So, the old saying, dust to dust, is interpreted by me as stardust to stardust. So stardust we were once, and stardust we will be again. And between those two experiences is a multitude of expressions. So some will simply return to dust. they will return to the stars dust that they came from. Some will be able to move beyond the boundaries of this universal mind. So if you think of a universal mind, my mind is inside of my brain, so to speak, inside of my skull, as is yours, as is anybody's. But we have a whole body, other than our mind, we have a whole body. The body of this universal mind is for me what is unknown and cannot be known. It is not anything I am able to conceptualize. But I do know for those who are able to expand into this idea of a universal mind, they will achieve connection to the body. Now, put it simply, okay, is this heaven? Maybe. Is it a transformation into a completely new state of being? Probably. I have no knowledge of what that is. I only know that many are here to assist people in that process to find that portal, that pathway, that um, um, I don't know what you would call it, epiphany, whatever the catalyst that will finally cause this mini big bang, within each of us that comes as a revelation. This is what it's about. This is why I'm here. This is where I am to go. So this is something that each one must do for themselves, but because we are collective, we are intrinsically here to guide one another, to help one another. We are not separate from one another. What I do, my fellow human being can see. What they do, I can see, and this propels all of us. And what we choose to latch on to and pay attention to is so important in that journey.
Yeah. Thank you. So in that shift, when you say we're all connected, I'm feeling this more and more and more that literally I get, as you talked about inspiration, something comes in and I'll get an idea and then it happens usually early morning and I'll say, oh, I must contact that person. And then this cascade of events happens so
Yeah.
rapidly. It's happening all the time now. And then
Oh,
someone comes, it's just like these fiber, this is what I feel it like or see, like nearly fiber optic sort of boom, boom, boom. And it's just, someone said it, I nearly feel like an antenna or someone like an antenna on the earth. Like you're just here going, okay,
yeah.
send me the signal. I'll then, is that sort of like it has the feeling of this web and we're as you're
Yeah.
I suppose as you're conscious of that, I suppose as you have to become conscious of that
Yeah.
in some way, which is really, is that coming online in a bigger way for more people?
Yes, I think what's coming online more and more are those who are identified as anchors. So what I hear you talking about are what I identify as anchors. Those who are incarnate on Earth to be at a particular place on the planet or among a particular group of people on the planet to hold space for this energy to come through. So when you use the word antenna, you were not that far off.
Ooh, getting
I
chills.
see you as one of these anchors, Celine. So you do not have to be consciously aware of this. You don't even have to
Okay.
accept it at all because
Okay.
anchors are intuitively guided to be where they need to be at any given time. That's their purpose. And they can sometimes, some of them move frequently. Some of them stay in one place their whole life because that is where they need to hold the space. Um,
And when you say hold the space, do you mean how would you describe that?
So, if you think of the earth as a place that allows both the dark and the light to dwell here together, meaning that human beings in this moment, in the third to fourth dimensional space of earth, can create using the dark energy as well as light energy. So, spiritual entities that are of the light, and so many people use the word light. I am much more explicit in my spiritual language, and sometimes that can rankle people because it has a lot of religious overtones. But I can't make any apology for that because this is how I've been shown that it works. So light is simply soul, and we have this eternal flame. All of us have it within our heart. It is the seed of the soul that will become over, billions of years from now, we evolve into energy beings, angelics, and then greater energy beings who lose more of their um, expression and form to become more of a pure light expression. It is a soul. This is the soul. This is what makes us eternal beings. It is what defeats our death. So we don't have to acknowledge this in order for the work to be done. And sometimes, many times actually, I've come across people who are very, uh, well, I'll use the word powerful in a spiritual sense. Not nobody's more powerful and important than
Mm.
anybody else, but their purpose is such that if they weren't there, it would be the world would be a different place, and they are not aware of what they're doing, because if they were, they would be overwhelmed. They would be overwhelmed with the fear. They would be overwhelmed with a sense of responsibility. So you don't have to be aware of your own spiritual purpose to fulfill it. That we are here is so important, and I tell clients this all the time, because one of their everybody's main question is, what's my purpose? Of course, my question too. you know so I'm going to say, for the most part, when you get into what is my purpose, it's just details and it's just drama that you make it what you wish. That you are here is all that matters. That you chose to incarnate in human form at this time and place is all that matters. That is your purpose at heart. That is your purpose, and
Mhm.
anything else is just details. For each one, and I say this to each one of your listeners, the world would be a different place if you weren't in it, and the
Mm.
world is a better place for you being in it.
That's a beautiful thing for everybody to hear. Thank you. It's so beautiful to hear that because often we don't feel that, isn't it?
No, no,
We
no, we don't.
often don't.
Well,
Um,
we are experiencing so many layers of dimensional reality that we are creating collectively, that um, the guides, my guides, always have a lot to say about this: which reality we choose to accept as truth, which reality we choose to inhabit.
okay, we might talk about, yeah, this is still Meylora talking, not a, yeah, well, I know you're always probably channeling in some sense, but would you say now as we're speaking, you're speaking as Meylora, or do you, I suppose, because we will do, I said I asked you, so I sent Meylora just a few questions as well that she could just allow in later maybe and answer and what came through for her. But so in an interview and us talking now, do you sort of act, because I know different channels talk in different ways. Some are trans channels, some say I move over now and then allow it through. I get the sense from you you're sort of moving in and out of it. How does it work?
Well,
Like,
it works for me. Actually, the word channel is becoming less comfortable for me, only because in the beginning, immediately after my shift, which I'll just talk about
yeah,
briefly, so
please.
so people can understand where I'm coming from with this. I laid down on my bed and shut my eyes, and my shift happened, and it was not really propelled by anything I was consciously doing. I wasn't trying to have this happen. I wasn't seeking God or higher self or anything like this. But I did experience what felt like a near death experience. My breath stopped in my lungs. My body became paralyzed, and I couldn't breathe for a period of time. Clearly, I'm here. I didn't die, so I didn't choke out, but I don't know how long it was, but I could not, my muscles were not responding to my brain saying breathe. I could not breathe. I was terrified. And I'm seeing, because my eyes are still closed and I couldn't open them either, I'm seeing myself hurtling through the universe. I'm seeing stars, I'm seeing planets. And I approached I can only what I know now to be what the spiritual tradition calls the great central sun, which is like a massive black hole in the center of our galaxy. and it had a sheen on it. It had a rainbow sheen on it, kind of like what you'd see on the surface of like gasoline or oil. Sometimes when the
Mm.
light comes on it, you get like a prism or a rainbow reflection in patches. This is what it looked like to me. And I recognized it as light colors, which when you put all of the colors together, they make two things. They make pure white, or they make or they make pure black, the same. So I saw them as all of the colors. And I said, is this God? What is this? I really thought I was dying, and I was okay with it. I said, okay. I thought I was having a heart attack is what I thought. I don't know why, because I was 50, 50, I almost now, I'm 59. I was like 54, but I thought, okay, I'm having a heart attack because my heart stopped. I
Mm.
can't breathe. And this is God. Okay. It's not what I expected, but okay. I was okay with it. At some point, I remember taking a huge gasp of breath in. I could breathe again. And then when I sat up on my bed and opened my eyes, I had no clue where I was. It's like my identity was completely removed. And I use the word identity with purpose, coming from a psychological background. This is the id entity. Okay. Our identity is the id entity, it is the false self. It is the self that we believe we are, that has been created since the moment of our birth in this planet. It is who people have told us we are. It is not really who we are. It is who we believe we are, because this is who we have been told we are. How people treat us is how we believe we need to treat ourselves. Sometimes, the intention is always to rise above this, but the id entity, my identity, was gone. I didn't know my name. I'm looking out my window. I'm seeing trees. I don't know what they are. This lasted not very long, maybe 5 minutes, maybe
Mm.
5 minutes. And I said, okay, this is my home. This is my home. I'm in my home. This is Earth. And I just had a full blown panic attack. And I'm ready to call 911. So United States, we call 911. I'm ready to call. And I'm like, what am I going to say? They're going to put me in the loony bin. So I realized there's nobody I can call. I'm not going to call my kids because they're completely freaked out. I'm not going to call my friends because they're going to really think I've lost it. So I'm on my own, and I was in this very, very disturbed mental place for a while, many months. It took me to regain sanity. But I say in this world, we are insane. We have to go insane to believe and exist in what is happening here. We have to embrace a level of insanity. So, really, it was a return to insanity that I had to do in order to kind of stabilize. But one of the offshoots of the two primary things that happened during the shift was my body came into perfect health. So I no longer had the autoimmune disorder. I no longer experienced the depression. And this can be medically shown because I had 10 years of blood tests with my ANA levels were completely off balance, well into a autoimmune disorder. I had the rash. I could go out in the sun again. That went away. I have tested negative for an autoimmune disorder. Ever since then, I've had no pain in my joints. I've not needed to take any medication for any depression or anything like that. So this restored my body to health. And the other thing that happened was, um, well, I began to experience miracle after miracle. In this period of time, a couple weeks after this happened, I began to see visions and hear, uh, not just hear voices, they came into me and spoke through my voice. So they weren't even in my head. They came through and they spoke. And I really looked like a crazy person. Thank God I lived alone. I'm walking around my house, what would look to be like anybody else. I'm talking to myself, but I'm channeling all of these different um, aspects that are coming through. And, a primary one was Archangel Michael identified themselves to me. And another one was Goddess Athena, who identified herself as the feminine sort of archetype protector of Earth, her representation of Earth right now, Pallas Athena. and then any number of, guardians, spiritual, even fourth dimensional entities, sometimes an Arcturian or an alien species representative would, and they would just speak. And they were speaking to me, but they were using my voice to speak. So my voice would change and things like this.
And did you know, sorry, Meylora, how did you identify, oh, this is Archangel Mike? Was this sort of just an inner, let's say, knowing or conversation with them that, like, how did you differentiate or?
They told me who they were, and I could see in my mind I was receiving visions of them as they were speaking. So I had a, now it could just be something that my mind made up, is, oh, this is Athena, so this is what she looks like. Could have been my
Mm.
mind creating the vision of them, but I could see who they were too. And I said, yes, this looks like Archangel Michael. This looks like this,
Maybe in a way that you'd
pastor.
recognize, I suppose, as a human. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I would say Jesus came through a lot, but Jesus as the Christ has many, many, many different aspects of being, of self, of expression, not just one, hundreds. So when I say identify the Christ, he has many different representations of that, for me. But so those three were the primary ones, and I could not control it. I didn't know how to control it. I didn't know what was happening to me, but my psychological background helped me a lot, because but for that, I would have thought I'd lost my, I thought of like, okay, the world finally broke me. I went crazy. I'm having a nervous breakdown. I'm fully blown, break from reality. This is what it was. Psychology would say I had a break from reality, and that's called, that's a schizophrenic type of thing to happen, and you need to go in the hospital. Because,
Mm.
looking at, if I had walked in my own office back then, I would have written a myriad of prescriptions to shut down this process, and I would have put them immediately in the hospital if they had nobody to take care of them, because I wasn't showering, I wasn't eating, I wasn't leaving
I
the house.
remember you telling me that on the Hill
I
of
couldn't
Slade.
do
I
anything else.
remember. Mm.
I just had to sit and write, because they were telling me all of this knowledge was coming through, and it was everything, and it never stopped. It never stopped. And I was sitting there for days and night, and I would just fall into bed exhausted, and then get up and immediately begin writing again. And I had to do it by hand. There was something about the screen, like if I tried to type it, because I got to get this out faster. And I tried to type it out, and there was something about sitting in front of the screen that would interfere with this channeling process. So I had to do it by hand, and it was just nonstop. I looked like an absolute lunatic hermit in a cave, raving. It was terrible.
And
But
did you learn how to, or did you know to say, I hear people saying, can you just slow down a little bit here? This is this is
I
getting.
didn't know I could do that. I was so in awe of what was
Mm.
happening. I saw the sun turn violet, Celine. The sun turned violet during this process. I was writing at my desk, and the light coming in from the window, it changed to a violet color. And I looked up out the window, and the sun was violet. I swear to I believe everybody who's ever said the sun danced around the sky or changed colors or turned into Virgin Mary, I believe it 100%, because I've had this type of vision myself, and nothing happened. I looked at it, and I was so afraid, because it made no sense. I was so afraid that I just turned away, and I kept writing. And the violet light kept shining in. And I was so afraid. I'm remembering the fear I had right now to look at that. I just didn't want to look at it. And I said, go away, please go away. Because it was so scary to me that that was happening. And I was like, what is this? What is going on?
Why was it happening? Do you know? Were you shown or told?
I know that it was happening so that I could have the level of faith that was required, because I saw that belief wasn't enough. I saw it with my own father. He was very devout. He was a devout person. And he was able to reject everything about God. And not only that, you know, speak incessantly about other people rejecting God, like, you're stupid if you think this. And so I saw that belief is not enough. I can't just believe in something greater than myself. I have to have faith. Like this faith is unchangeable, unwavering. It doesn't matter what somebody says to me. I've seen the sun go violet. I can't go back from that. My body was cured. I can't ignore that. I can't say this isn't real. So I think all those things happened to me. So I have this level of faith to speak now, because if I didn't, I'd
Mm.
question even what I'm saying. Like, oh, do I really believe that? Because now I get so many things that fly in the face of everything I was taught in my life, everything that I was taught to believe and did believe. And if I still was in that frame of mind of belief, I wouldn't share these things. Like, well, that's not true. Oh, that can't be true. That's from the dark. That's from the evil. I'm not talking about that. That can't come out. But because my faith, I trust all of my guides implicitly now, that no matter what they say, even if I'm afraid of it, even if it causes me to feel fear, or oh, I don't know about sharing this, I do it. I do it because of the faith that I have. I know that what they are sharing is for the benefit of humanity, no matter how it feels, no matter if people say, oh, I don't want to know that. I don't want to hear that. I don't want that to be true. They have to know that it is one truth that is accepted here by many, and they move through that. They have to make a choice. Everybody has to make a choice to decide what their truth is. And they can't make an appropriate choice without having the wisdom of the biggest truth unlocked within them first. Meaning, there is no choice to make. There is one truth, and that is it. There is one truth. It is an expression of love, it is the expression of our creation. Everything else is drama, everything else is a created
Yeah.
experience. They're all true, and then none of them are true, because it's all one big truth. So
Yeah.
now, you asked
Sorry.
how the
Mm.
channeling had, sort of adapted or transformed. In the beginning, it was this uncontrollable channeling of different entities. They had different things to say, different voices, different, my body would move in different ways when they came through. I recognize now that they are simply expressions of the one, you know, you can call it divine, because I can't think of a better word. The one divine being, they're all expressions. So once I realized that, and I was open to any expression of that divinity, whether it scared me or not. I trusted that no harm would come to me nor any other person. And I've always found that to be the case. Always found that to be the case. So it's become less of an inhabiting of the different aspects in my body physically, and a connection to, well, Eckhart Tolle just calls it consciousness, and that's as good enough a word as any. He would say he's not channeling, and I understand why he says that,
Yeah.
because it is a receiving of collective consciousness. It's a receiving of a consciousness that is as close to a universal mind as can be. So one that says, I am all aspects, I am all things. It is an I am presence. So it's less about an energetic personality or aspect inhabiting, as just informate a flow of information, a flow of wisdom. So I'm able
Yes.
to,
And is
you could
that
say, you
slightly?
could say I'm channeling right now. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm wondering, that does it sort of become, I get sort of, the only way I can relate is sometimes I feel sort of a knowing or information coming through that isn't the old it happened to me after cancer. I was in a very mental, tight,
Yes,
confined
you had a
way.
similar experience.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of it sort of has been gradually loosening, not in that way, but that now I only trust what sort of I'd say more inspiration, it just comes in like that, or something just comes. I don't, I'm like, try not to analyze it, or I don't seem to have the capacity to think about it in the way that I used to. It's like I can't, don't know how to describe it, but, and
Yeah,
it's, I feel like channeling, as you said, is that word. I like what you're saying. Well, it feels, not, it was like, I sort of resonates with me when you're saying, but isn't it? sort of coming through in receiving, but it's coming through the filter of each of you versus Eckhart Tolle or me or someone else. Is that the sort of the slight different color, or because you see so many people, channeling or whatever, receiving, is that what's happening? They have a different role or just their different filter or version of reality?
They're just a different filter. So every
Different
single
filter.
one of us on the planet is an
Mm.
absolute miracle, is an absolute, there is no one else like you.
Mm.
There is no one else like you. You are the only way, you are the only way that God's, I'll just call it God, God's expression can come through your vessel. You are an absolutely unique vessel with a unique experience, and you are God's presence here. That is absolutely miraculous. So everybody has something to offer. Everybody has something to offer that is unique. I mean, it's no mistake that most people who channel kind of say similar messages. It'd be weird, if everybody channeled something totally different, So there is sort of an overarching message, that channels definitely are given. But what you're speaking to, as far as this inspiration is extremely spiritual. It's slightly different from imagination. So we have centers all over our brain that are called imagination centers. And science can't understand this, and they don't know what's going on there. They can't say, here's a spot in the brain where you imagine things. It's kind of all over. And these points in our brain are connections to that divine mind. And they are the centers of imagination. So many times when we, certainly in our dreams, when we're under hypnosis, sometimes people feel like, oh, I'm making it up, things like that. It's because this connection to the divine mind is being activated, is being accessed. And so if our mind is closed to anything greater than ourselves, we'll think, well, it's imaginary, it's make believe, it's not real, we're making it up. Of course, your brain is making it up. This is your brain, this is your mind responding, this is your id entity responding. You're making it up because there's nothing more powerful than the mind, right? The mind, my mind is not going to acknowledge anything greater than itself. So if anything greater than itself tries to come in with knowledge it doesn't know, it'd be like, this is nonsense. This is just nonsense. Because everything I see with my eyes would say this is nonsense because I can't see you. So it's not real. But this inspiration absolutely comes through these centers of the brain that are sometimes called imagination, but you accept it. You accept it as
Yeah.
inspired, something that is
Yes.
inspired by something greater than yourself. This is an
Yes.
application.
It's so exciting. Sorry, just I say it's a
Yeah.
very, when you start to play or respond or whatever, work that it's just wow. If I ever doubted, we are creators. We have that capacity. Because you talked about, you said they talk about the reality, it's up to us. You said the
Yeah.
importance of how. Can you talk, yeah, talk a little bit about that in terms of, is it where we focus is the reality, or is the reality what
Yeah.
we see?
Yes, I will. And actually, let me get to, I think that was one of the questions that you asked.
Yeah, yeah.
Or, but let me get to some of the questions that you asked, because I know at some point, and I've
Yeah,
made notes because I don't want to forget anything that was coming
yeah.
through.
Let's do that because time will. I want to make sure we get to all that.
Yeah, so
Thank
you
you.
had asked a question about the dark chaos and the awakening, the shift in consciousness on the planet, and the role of the darkness and so forth. So, what is happening right now in the collective? If you think about the earth as a being, a conscious being who has a body, and we are existing upon and within her body. And I do call it a feminine presence. We are existing within her body, okay? So within her womb. Some people call this the matrix. So another word for womb, WOMB, is matrix. So this is not a scary thing. This is not, an oppressive thing. Think of it like the cocoon. We're in the cocoon. We are in the womb. We are growing. We are still evolving. We are still growing. We are not ready to be born yet. Okay, we're still growing. So in the womb is a place of darkness. Now we can choose to see this darkness, this blindness, this constriction, this mini universe that we have within ourselves. as oppressive, punitive, a punishment, or a place where we are meant to continue to grow, where we are to continue to expand our wisdom and what we accept as truth. So, because we are evolving as a collective, individually, yes, but as a collective, we are in a place in space and time where there is something like a portal being opened that is usually closed. But at this point in the cycle, we are passing in front of this portal, and we are called to make a choice, for lack of a better word. We're called to make a choice. We're given free will here in this planet. That's the overriding principle of this planet, is the free will of self. So we are given a choice that must be made not in the mind, but in the heart. And I see it like a 4-point system. And you can even align this with the chakras. You've got a left eye and you've got a right eye, and they see two different worlds. I'm going to keep it very simple. I'm going to use some words that have some heavy religious dogma, and I don't mean it that way, but just to keep the explanation simple for people as possible. One eye sees heaven and one eye sees hell. That is as it is meant to be. Both are allowed to exist here. Both are here. We must choose then which we see. Now, if we are able to open our third eye, right, which is our spiritual eye, now we create a trinity where we see in truth. We see heaven and hell united. They're not separate. They come together with that third eye. And in this, we're able to see, this is God's purpose. God is in all things. God is in all things. Okay. This opens the mind. This opens the mind to the divine mind so that wisdom can come in. The choice is not made in the mind, however, it is made in the heart. So the connection between our mind and our heart is our voice. What do we speak into the world? What am I speaking into the world? Words have great power here, great power. In the beginning, there was the word. This is the greatest power that we have when we use our voice. Do we speak with the dark energy, or do we speak with the light energy? What do we bring? Do we speak of hell, or do we speak of heaven? Which do we bring? Do we bring the curses and the black magic and the sorcery in our voice? Do we use it to manipulate others, which is very easily done? Or do we use it to uplift, evolve, protect? Now, they want you to think that you have to choose. You don't have to make this choice. You put them together and you say, I speak for God. I speak for the one who is over all. I speak for neither. I speak for all that is. This brings the voice into balance. And then there is an energetic flow now from the mind down into the heart. This opens the heart to what is really in the heart. Now, this is where a lot of people's shadow work begins. When they get into the heart and they see my human nature was born in darkness. I was born in the darkness of the womb. I was born of the earth. I was born of the mother. This came before anything. What came before me, what gave birth to me. I separate that from the creator, which is more of a seed, a light, presence. But our true nature is of the dark. Darkness in its purest form is very sacred. It is perfect peace. It is an absence of chaos. And I say that because that is the paradox that all things are, because our universe is total chaos. That's all it is. It's constant movement and regrouping and transforming all over the place. It's constant chaos. To find in your heart the eye of the hurricane, to say, I'm using this dark energy to get to the center of that hurricane. So the shadow work is you're moving through all the layers of the hurricane. You finally get to the center. You find that it is perfect peace. The dark energy is not evil. It is not oppressive. It is being used that way. It is being abused for that purpose. It is peace. It is the dark energy, which is meant to be peace, perfectly neutral. All is accepted. All is good. This is the energy that says everything is okay. Everything is exactly as it should be. You are growing. You are growing. You are in the womb and you are growing. You are getting ready. You are getting ready to be birthed, into the light. So incorporating what enters not just from the eyes and the ears, but also from the crown, what comes down from the crown. And more importantly, at this time, which is the purpose of the darkness now, is to open ourselves up to the energy of the earth as it is a mother to us, that we are her children. So this dark energy would say, the very first thing, you're going to be surprised to hear this, I think. The very first part of our body that forms in the uterus is the anus.
Oh, that is
Not the heart,
surprising.
not the brain, but the anus. And it is like a mouth kind of a thing. It's the first thing that begins to absorb the nutrients, that the mother gives us, in the uterus. So this is no mistake. Opening up of this root chakra, opening up of that part of ourselves to begin a spiritual colonoscopy, which means you got to get all up in that most obscene place, the most darkest, most obscene, most disgusting place you can think of in yourself, and see what's going on in there. Find all the little cancerous, pre-tumors, find the actual tumors, find the imbalance, in the system, what's going on in there. This is the spiritual shadow work that we're feeling as a collective right now. And of course, all of this is getting fleshed out. This is to receive from inside of ourselves, to create this connection that illuminates our being in full, from crown to anus, so that the energies of the mother, which her polarization is shifting rapidly right now, we can allow those to come in so we may be shifted as well. We may be shifted, and it feels uncomfortable. It feels like a colonoscopy, like a cleansing out. Like, it's not something, it's not a pleasant experience for anybody, these kinds of things, but it is a necessary way to allow the heart to choose its own desire. Because we can say whatever we want. I can lie about anything. I can say, oh, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a righteous person, I believe in this, that, and the other. But what lives within the heart of all the collective being exposed in truth. And that is where the choice is made. And we are called to make our hearts light as feathers, free of the blood, the blood of our ancestors, I'll use another heavily laden word, which sins, the sins of our forefathers, the sins of all of humanity that has come before, that we inherit. We have to be free of this blood in our heart to make our hearts light, so that we can choose. We can choose life. We can choose our own growth. I wish to birth myself.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question on that then? With the dark, as you said, the dark is not necessarily, you're saying, we hear so much talk about there's so much darkness and chaos. And I know you're talking about the shadow, but you're also saying the dark is really a place of peace, and it's the womb, and it's where something is birthed from. So has it been, what I'm trying to understand, has that sort of been co-opted, or how is that then say if we're
Yeah, okay. Yes, I received a channeling because I know that a lot of your listeners are meant to go forward into the next cycle of Earth, which is, well, we've fully entered the fourth dimension already. With the many things contributed to that, the the igniting of the atomic bomb was actually a clarion call to many in the spiritual universe that read it's time. And so after the atomic bomb was detonated on Earth, many then began to incarnate on Earth for this purpose. Um, the next cycle of Earth in the fourth dimensional Earth, where the singularity will be achieved by artificial intelligence, there are many who are preparing themselves to enter that dimension to hold space for continued spiritual growth, because that is still a reality of darkness. It's still a reality that leads to death. So many, will play important roles among the galactic races, but they're still races. They can still, they live much longer than humans, but they can still die. So it is still a world of death, but it is still a world of growth and evolution. So there's a time right now where you can choose your next experience of your next expression. Many have chosen to serve in this way, to enter the fourth dimension as servants within it, because knowing that it will lead to, death. I mean, for lack of a better word. But these people also know that death is not the truth, that they will never die, that they are eternal beings. So I have a message that I wrote down from a guardian that I know who's in the fourth dimension. I call this one the Emerald Guardian. The Emerald Guardian is responsible for overseeing the human divine blueprint within us and helping to magnify its expression in illumination. In the fourth dimension, there still remains an oppressive force. This is the same dimension where the angelics are still in battle with their shadow selves, the demonics, things like that. But coming from a galactic race point of view, I will share this message for your viewers so they can understand better why they are here, for example. Okay. This is the message from the Emerald Guardian. Yeah, they're extremely intelligent. So I apologize, but if you have any questions, I'll try to answer. Earth is an entropic paradigm generated by the brainwave frequency feedback of a genetically altered race. So that would be us. He's saying that the human race has been genetically altered by galactic beings. The inhabitants of this world reside in an isolated temporal zone that has been modified to enslave consciousness and deprive the individual being of its sentient sovereignty. There is a need to disconnect from this modified manufactured matrix. This is his answer, by the way, to what is the darkness, what's going on.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Why is this all coming out now? Why is
Yes.
complete chaos seem to be coming out now? Again, this is also the truth from the fourth dimensional astral plane space. However, the deviant reality we now experience is itself the result of just such a disconnection. Electromagnetic disassociation from the modified matrix is necessary, but it will occur as a result of connecting to the true matrix as defined by the unadulterated translation of holistic life force. Okay, so he's just saying that people are disconnecting from the matrix, but they're unable to reconnect into the divine matrix. So they're in this chaotic limbo. So you do have to disconnect from the matrix, but then you kind of enter this rabbit hole, right? This Alice in Wonderland space where, like, what is real? What's going on?
So how are people disconnecting? Sorry, when you say people have to disconnect, I mean, how is that happening differently?
They must choose.
Okay, you must choose. It's the choice.
Must choose. Yes, it has to be of their own free will. It has to be. And this is also the paradox, because from one perspective, it's evolution. So who chooses to evolve? No one chooses to evolve. It just happens. We don't have control over it. But in fact, we do. There is a choice. We can choose to evolve, and in what way? And this is the spiritual principle that he's talking about here. So he spoke to the electromagnetic disassociation. So this is important too. What he's saying is that we are beholden as energy beings to the energetic resonance of the earth itself, which is electromagnetic. So there's a magnetic polarization that emanates from the center of the earth up through our bodies, comes up from the center. It's like a pulse of magnetism. And then there is electricity, which we are electrical beings. We are we are animated by electricity. Our brains fire with electricity. Our heart beats with electricity. But this is a false energy source. It is not. We should be soul energy. We should be tapping into our eternal flame, and that should be the energy of our bodies, which is eternal. That is eternal. So when our bodies die, our electricity just dissipates. It's gone, right? So this is the death. So the choice that he's saying is a disconnecting from this electromagnetic matrix that says you must live and you must die over and over again. Disconnecting from that is a choice made that says, so to make it very, very simple, we must reject death. And I think he says this later. So I'll just keep going.
Yeah,
Just
please.
keep going with what he's saying. Okay. Electromagnetic disassociation from the modified matrix is necessary, but it will occur as a result of connecting to the true matrix as defined by the unadulterated translation of holistic life force. So unadulterated means pure, holistic means unified life force, so God. So he's basically saying we must connect to our God self. We must connect to something that we identify as greater than ourselves, greater than death, something that has overcome death. This is what we must connect to. And that takes as long as it takes. Some people get lost in that limbo. They disconnect from the matrix. Now they're in the astral plane. Oh, the astral plane. Now everybody's creating with that dark energy. Oh, moving those stars around, and that you believe anything. You can believe anything. There's so many things to believe, and it's all fascinating. It's all perfectly hypnotic. And sometimes people get lost in that dream world, and then they're not able to, reconnect into this this unity thing, to realize that we are all one. There's even in the galactic races, they're one. There's not reptilians and Arcturians, there are, but even in that world, they are still expressions of the one, right? Continued expressions. So connecting into the true matrix, the pure translation of this holistic life force. Where does life come from? In our present reality, this continues, the systematic failure of self-regeneration as a result of our disconnection from the holistic continuum gives rise to the myriad of destructive ways in which we seek to support our existence, such as the splitting of the atom to generate nuclear power. So he referenced the atomic splitting in this. So what he's saying, the systematic failure of self-regeneration. Okay. So he understands, as a co-creator of this divine blueprint, that we have the ability to heal ourselves. We have the ability to overcome death ourselves. This is our nature. This is our true inheritance. This is what has been made corrupt, that the belief that we have to suffer and die. That is the corruption upon our matrix. So we cannot, for the most part, regenerate our own cells and health, or we think we can, so we don't, because of our disconnection from the universal soul. Say the universal soul is God's heart. It's an infinite energy source that, if we're able to tap into it, what need we fear? So, but there is a purposeful disconnection and a sense of separation from this universal soul, from this God. And without this connection, we come up with ways to stay alive that are destructive. Like because we still, everybody fears death, what we do is we try to come up with different ways to avoid death other than connecting to God. Like anything
Mm,
but
mm.
that. Let's split the atom.
Anything but that. I know.
Anything but that.
Isn't that so interesting? Yeah.
So it just perpetuates the idea that, yeah, you're going to die then, right? So he continues, no amount of green thinking, interesting, can reverse this predicament until a systemic reconnection is realized. The fault lies deep in the matrix. Okay. The matrix is woven and spun by the collective unconscious. However, the units of circuitry whose brain chemistry contributes the frequency transmissions that stimulate and stabilize the matrix reality have been genetically modified, and so the manifest reality created by the morphogenetic conspiracy of these transmissions is also modified. All right, give me a minute with that. Okay, so he's saying we are meant to be co-creators. We are meant to be connected to this divine mind and creating with God our reality. But because when we reject God, or we become disconnected from God for whatever reason, we then lack the ability to manifest a reality, a co-created reality with this source of love. So we have a limited stream of this love soul energy that we're using, and we're left to use what is most prevalent in the universe, which is dark energy. Like 95 something percent of what surrounds us is dark energy. So this is what primarily we use. Okay.
Okay.
And this is also, he's saying, part of the genetic modification that has happened. And he calls it he used the word conspiracy, or a morphogenetic conspiracy. This reality, okay, the reality that we experience as a collective is a series of frequency transmissions and resonance response patterns dictated by the stimulus response mechanism of this dualistic paradigm. All right, that's a lot. They can pack so much information
Whoa.
in one
Whoa,
sentence, but
Meylora. They sure can.
we need to parse it out here so we
Mm.
can understand this message. Um, so he's saying that these frequency transmissions are probably coming from outside of Earth, from somewhere in the galaxy, as actual energetic transmissions that we receive, as individual human beings that have been modified. Okay, I'm getting more information. Thank you. I had another guide step in and help me. Yes. So what it does is we have a very deep layer of our brain, the deepest layer of our genetic memory on Earth, not in the water, not in the oceans, but on Earth, on land, is as a snake, reptile, or winged being. So it's a more, and science would call this, sometimes calls it the lizard brain or the snake brain. It is the part of our brain that is unconscious to us. It keeps our heart beating, it keeps us breathing. We can't really access it. Well, some people can, some very, you have to really be really intentional to access it. But it's like a program running in the background of all of us that we don't even think about. It's not in our conscious awareness, so we don't think about it. It just is, it just runs. And this basic program is also, its primary program is fight or flight, also known as predator or prey. It is the basis of all of the tribalism that we experience on Earth, the separation, the othering, the we need to rally around a common enemy kind of a thing. We need to get them before they get us. This person this creature is going to eat me, so I need to kill them first. This is the most ancient part of our brain that is meant to be dormant. It is meant to be primarily dormant. It's just supposed to make our heart beat,
Mm.
things like that. It is not supposed to affect our cognitive responses to
Not
life.
run the show, maybe.
Yes, but this is the modification that has been done. So these transmissions activate these deep parts of our brain that are not supposed to be active as they are. But the strength of these transmissions has grown over time since in the last 75 years. And so we see an increase in this separation, this creation of the separation of tribes, so to speak. This
Mm.
is what he's addressing here. Stimulus response mechanism and the dualistic paradigm, right? So it's a false sense of choice. It's, do you choose heaven, hell? It's very simplistic. There are way more than two choices. You can make any choice you like, as a matter of fact. You can choose your own destiny, choose what you want for yourself. You're not limited to this thing, but we feel like we're limited. We have to choose one side or the other.
Yeah.
You have to be this or that. And if I choose this, the other choice is 100% wrong. Those
Mm.
people are evil. Those people are stupid.
Why has that? You hear different ways of this being spoken about. Like I've heard of archonic forces or darker forces, or
Uh-huh.
yeah, like where I'm sort of trying to get a handle on. I understand the separation, the sort of divide and conquer. I used to experience right or wrong, and predator prey, and yeah, as you
Uh-huh.
said, the reptilian brain. So why is and then in terms of the organic, let's say, matrix and the inorganic matrix, maybe they're the words I would sort of, and you say, I know, does it matter, but why or who or what created all of like that? What is the point if it's all one, if everything is stemming back to the divine mind, the one?
Yes, yes. So now we're getting really, really existential. Now we're getting into really, we're getting
It's just
real
another.
meta. We're getting very, very meta now.
Okay,
So
we won't go
it,
for too long, just a
it
little.
is the most simplistic answer I can give you, or I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to people
Yeah,
to,
for ease
I
of
want
sort
people
of
to
a little bit of
understand. Yes.
yeah.
Um, is that God is exploring itself.
Yes.
God is creating new things all the time with the information given. So science, yes, science will back me up on this. Einstein, Hawking, they have said the universe is simply data. That's all it is. It's data. It's information. The stars emit information and data, and they do, especially black holes. Black holes emit data. That was a big thing that Einstein said, and he's absolutely right. So this is, you can think of us as existing in God's mind. Those traditions that call it a dream world. Yes, absolutely correct. This is God dreaming of itself, thinking of itself. What more can I do? What more am I? This is actually God asking God to
Yeah. Yeah.
and and we are helping God answer that question. So
God has got a little lost
that's
inside of
about as
me.
simplistic a meta answer. And
That's why
so
we're bumping up against each other to go, hey, remember?
yes, so God can determine, and the universe is continually expanding. So into infinity, it's continually expanding. So
So
as
is it the forgetfulness? I suppose this is what I sense. I know everything is of this mind. So what you spoke of earlier, came through about the modified matrix and
yes,
the deviant reality. Is that through the forgetfulness of you us, that we are of the divine mind that has gone off and in a
yes,
that's
yes.
sort in a simplistic way. It's just my
Yes, yes. I mean, so sort of philosophically and metaphysically, you can say, yes, we've created the situation for ourselves as a collective because we believe, I guess, when a certain number of people, percentage of people, because everything is numbers here, everything is math and numbers. So when a certain percentage of people believe that we are an oppressed species and being oppressed by something beyond our control, then that happens. Then that reality is formed. So for those people who say, oh, there's some Draco reptilians who are um, responsible for these transmissions, responsible for these disruptions in our matrix, responsible for the corruption of the divine matrix. Yes, they're absolutely right. If you create it, you are right. That's what's happening, and that is what's happening on one level of reality. It's the truth. I don't want to talk too much about it because,
Yeah.
but I will for those people who are going forward to deal in this created world. Draco reptilians have harnessed the power of gravity to affect time travel, and they've used artificial intelligence to do it. The human mind was not able to reach these levels, but the reptilian mind, having been under evolution for a greater amount of time than the mammalian mind and certainly the modern human mind, when it is incorporated with artificial intelligence, was able to create this species of being who we can't compete. The human mind cannot compete with these entities. It's in no way. We're helpless. We really are helpless. As helpless as if we were being hypnotized, which we are. We are. Yes, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a fear-based thing. It doesn't have to come from a place of fear. You can accept that you are perhaps wanting to be a servant at this time for humanity, for those who accept that as the reality and will enter that reality at some point. And many light workers are needed, for that process.
In different dimensions. So we're all going to be choosing where we're going to go and play our, is that sort of,
Well, again, I hesitate to use the word choice, but
mm,
so from the broadest perspective, there are no choices. You have an aspect of being in every dimension. Everyone does. Which aspect are we choosing to place our attention on at
yes,
the moment? Because
yes,
in reality, we are all things in all places,
yes.
but
Mm,
we are choosing to put our attention now. So I would say to all the listeners, this life you're living now is the most important one of all because you are choosing to put your attention on it. You could choose to be your fourth dimensional self, your sixth dimensional self, your ninth dimensional self, but you are choosing this one now. So that's why it is the most important life of all.
yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That helps on that. Were there other messages coming through from the questions before we sort of,
Oh yes.
yeah,
Let me finish this message from the
yeah,
Emerald Garden. I'll try not to. I won't translate it then. I'll just read it straight through because we'll not be here all day trying to translate
yeah,
this. Um, Due to our genetically modified system, our biochemical receptors, transducers, and transmitters are not only in sympathy with this paradigm, they are creating it. Okay, that's what we were just talking about that. The non-manipulated true matrix, in contrast, is built upon the vibratory infrastructure of a holistic mandate transmitted from the heart of the cosmic hologram. A matrix fashioned from the full spectrum of the geometric life impulse. This manifests a reality which is in full resonance with creation, in which nothing that owes its existence to the subjugation of the male or female potencies can hold its molecular structure. A reality that is a stargate to every time and energy level in the universe. And he closes with this, and I bolded and emphasized this. It is essential to the enslavement of humanity that we do not question the inevitability of our death.
Is it
I'll,
a,
I'll read
it,
that again. It
yeah,
is
do please.
essential
Essential.
to the enslavement of humanity that we do not question the inevitability of our death. So we are being enslaved because we accept that death is the reality, that we must die.
So it is time to question that.
Yes, it is time.
And I hear you saying when you, or what was, don't say channeled or coming through there, and I've heard it said before or recently, this cosmic heart, that this is our way back. Is it to,
Yes, the choice is made in the heart,
mm, mm,
choice
mm,
such as it is. Inevitability, our destiny, realizing our destiny. The revelation is simply revealing of the knowledge, the wisdom, the truth that has always been within us all the time. It's accepting that. Accepting that then comes as a revelation, like, but it was always within us, always within us.
so we meet in the heart,
We meet in
you
the
know,
heart.
we do
Yes, we
meet
meet
in
in
the
the heart,
heart. We do.
not with our minds, not with
No.
our opinions, not with our beliefs,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
with our politics. We meet in the heart.
Yeah. I'm feeling it more and more. That's a beautiful, beautiful way as well, to sort of draw to a close. Is there anything else that there was, I know there was other, is there anything else you feel strongly to be shared, um, now?
The other questions you asked, I'll just run through them and then
Yeah.
you tell me which one grabs you, which so we can pick one of these
Yeah.
and you can do that.
Pick a couple. I think we can go a little bit longer.
Okay, so another question you asked was how will the awakening play out for the rest of
Yeah,
2020?
maybe. Yeah.
So I had the angelics come through for this one. So there are many higher angelics, Archangel Michael in particular. He was given the sword for a reason. He's called a saint for a reason. That's how close he is to the human experience, that he can be called a saint, because a saint has to be embodied as a human
Mm.
first. That's the first quality of being saint. So he's Saint Archangel Michael. I also know him to be one of the architects, one of the four architects of the divine matrix. And his sword is used in a variety of ways, but he came forth with other angelics to answer this question. And he said that we are called into certain particular responsibilities at this time. And they are justice making and compassion are the two that were mentioned. So coming into an awareness of an acceptance of these responsibilities is the awakening that he is hoping will be achieved as a collective, but he's willing to acknowledge any particular individuals who are able to awaken to this message of justice making and compassion, moving
Mm.
from the superficial outer self to the true self or the inner self. So, how he describes this, and he works very closely with Athena on these matters of evolution of the human soul on Earth. They are to one another's side, Archangel Michael and the goddess Athena. They both, they're both of them are deeply involved in justice and the sense of justice and what that means within the heart of a human, not just the mind. Right now, in this particular moment of evolution in humanity, in the particular time and space that the earth is in, justice is the highest level of morality that we acknowledge. So we aspire to be just and fair. And we believe that we have created systems of justice that are just and fair. And this is what's holding the fabric of all humanity together, this justice system. And that when we are just and fair with others, we are as God intended us to be. This is the highest. He is saying this is not the highest. This is not the highest. It was at one point in the old covenant of humanity, this was the highest. Humanity was meant to achieve this justice system, to bring justice into it. Now that we've done that, we must grow beyond it. We must grow beyond the sense of justice and balancing the scales to breaking the scale altogether. Why are we weighing people? Why are we weighing the heft of other people? Why are we deciding what is just and fair? When you have justice and compassion together, for Athena, it's mercy. For Archangel Michael, it is forgiveness. When these two qualities come together as compassion, we are called as a society to say, all is forgiven. There is nothing to punish. There's nothing to punish. This is a very advanced spiritual directive that's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. It will come into fruition in the fifth dimensional version of Earth, where it's a recognition of a society absent of justice. But what happens is not chaos, because what we're told now is if we don't have justice, everybody will be evil.
Yeah.
Everybody will begin raping, pillaging, murdering. There will be chaos. As a matter of fact, when you remove justice and you inject compassion and forgiveness, you are able to magnify yourself so that a justice system is not required. And they showed me the vision. I don't know if this was an ancient human civilization or what this was, but they showed me a civilization that looked vaguely African, in which there was a village or a community of people, and when one of those persons did something harmful to not just to another person but to themselves as well, said something harmful or did a violent action that was harmful, instead of punishing that person or isolating that person, ejecting that person from the community, they surrounded that person with love. And they said, listen, for you to do something like this, you must be hurting. There must be something wrong. We must have caused this. We must have doing something wrong. How can we help you now? And they love bombed this person. They did the exact opposite of what the justice system would say is fair and just, which was, well, let's decide how bad you are and what you deserve, and the worse you are, the worse you're going to get, and the better you are, well, I'll decide if I want to be merciful or not. This is the old covenant. The new covenant calls us to a higher level of balancing that says there's nothing to balance. We are a collective. We are a unified presence. There is not one of us that is separate or deserving of being separate or deserving of punishment. That if someone has done something harmful, then something's wrong in this system.
Yeah.
Something's wrong with us as a collective. And that person's just expressing it. That person's just showing it to us. So the hypocrisy would say, oh, you bad person, get out. Get out. You don't even deserve to live on this planet anymore. This is the level of blindness and hypocrisy that is within the justice system. So all the other systems that must be restructured are related to this system of justice as well as compassion. And he made a very, very strong point of including women and children in this. And he's saying women and children must be respected as distinct presences and protected. He has a very, very strong protective spirit, particularly for children, but also for women, because the earth is a feminine expression. And for him for a collective being to denigrate the feminine is like, well, from my Catholic heritage, it would be like spitting in the face of Mother Mary. It would be like the worst. Like, you say what you will about Jesus, but don't go after Mother. This is his presence. So he's very protective of the feminine as well as children. And he says when a collective system fails their children, it has to go. It's got to go, and that darkness will be revealed. And the darkness is not found in these individual people. It is found in the collective that you
Yes.
create system produced that child, that turned into this. That child was born with the same pure heart as everyone else. So this is his thinking. So
Yeah.
while we're condemning one another left and right,
Yes.
leaving our
Yes.
children suffer.
Yes. I felt, just to bring that to something individual for me, I really felt that strongly yesterday. I was telling you, Meylora, about my mother being in hospital, and I sat there and I was saying it to someone because it's the system here. The health system is not so good. And after 12
Yeah.
hours lying on a trolley and watching all these elderly and vulnerable people, I remember saying it to a person beside me, and a woman who was in horrific pain, and again not being seen to. And I just said, there's something wrong, isn't there, with the society? Rather than just pick, it's not, I wasn't identifying an individual. A society or a system where this is allowed to happen is just so wrong. Like on every level, you're elderly, you're most vulnerable
Yes.
people. On no level, I just could felt, I was like crying nearly with it, going, this is just not okay. And it's
Yes.
yeah, and it's how beautifully described there, rather than, and I feel that because I feel from the people in there, I would say majority are doing their best to care. But we have collectively, as you said, created this system, and it feels like they are, you know, there's newer, my feeling is from people I'm talking to, where there are newer, more systems that you're talking of compassion, that are being built, that are ready to sort of rise up as the others sort of, it'll sort of happen nearly together, like this collapse. The people nearly have to see it and go, this is, no, 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 I'm not doing this anymore. I'm over here.
Yeah.
Is that, because that was one of the questions, I suppose, in terms of systems, which is the complete, isn't it? It's the full organism that we are all participating in. There isn't
We're all
one.
participating. Every system, governments, and
Mm, mm,
every system is predicated on the idea of just and fair, as well as compassion. Like what is fair, what is most
yeah.
equal for people in every system. And it still perpetuates a system of judgment of other people,
Mm,
or of condemnation, I'll say, of condemnation, and a lack of responsibility, a lack of personal responsibility. It takes a really, spiritually aware person to look
mm.
at, somebody, I don't know, a pedophile. Just think of somebody like the worst, in your mind,
Yes.
who's standing before a judge, and to say, this person isn't at fault. The society created this person. We created this person. And to completely move the judgment onto yourself rather than that person, and say, if I judge this person, I can only judge myself, because as a part of the society, of the collective, we failed this child, we failed this person as a collective. And every prophet in the history of whenever has talked about widows and orphans and refugees, which is a topic for another day, but Archangel Michael had a lot to say about that. Widows, orphans, and the stranger, these are what we must accept. These are what we have to have the most compassion towards if we seek to open our heart in the proper way, in the way that will create the kind of expansion that we're looking for. Everybody's looking for this expansion into love. Widows, orphans, and the stranger. Prophets have said it. The angelics beat that drum, and they don't mince words with it. They don't monkey around with the definition. Everybody, every time. Women, children, and the stranger, which is everybody else in the world, actually.
Yes.
Your family and everybody else in the world.
Okay. Is there another message from Archangel Michael or someone else who wants to come in?
Hmm. He's feeling, and I'll say, I like to call him they, because he's a
Yes.
they. He's an angelic collective presence. He wants you to know that he carries the human souls within his body. They are like, when they are born. Okay, he has such love. He has such love for these souls within these they're infant angels is what they are. They are children of God. He sees them as all of us as children of God. He sees our soul within, and this is what he he feels such intense love and protection, but he also has this sword, and he wants to, okay, I have to say this. He pierces our heart with this sword, which is like a blue, I don't know, lightsaber type of thing. It's an energetic sword, and it has a bluish indigo light to it. He pierces the human hearts of his choosing with this sword. This piercing can either bring forth this flow of purity, like cleansing the blood, like a flow. I'm seeing a vision of a flow of water into the heart, like holy water, just cleansing this coagulated, diseased blood. He can do this. He can also pierce the heart like a fruit. Okay, I think I know what he's trying to say. A fruit that has become rotten. So he is very biblical. I can't help it. This is just how he talks. He is talking about the fruit of the vine. He's talking about our own tree and what fruit do we grow? Are our roots healthy? Are we connected to the earth mother in love? Do we receive from our roots love, or do we reject what is below the earth, what is in the darkness, and say this is disgusting? But this is what draws up the water, what draws it up into the body that is our tree. While we open our crown, we open our top to the sun that comes, the water that flows. This creates our fruit, the fruit that we bear, what we offer the world, what we give to the world in our actions and our words. And when that fruit is rotten, I have to say it. He'll cut that branch. He'll pierce that fruit so that the rot explodes and we can see it. And this is our opportunity. We can say, he's reminding me that I I am not above any other human, and no one is. There is even the most despicable human I can think of. I could do that. That I choose not to be that way doesn't make me better, doesn't make me more worthy of respect. Just because I choose not to be a pedophile, I choose not to be a mass murderer, I choose not to be a serial killer, I choose not to be that type of person, whatever, fill in the blank. I could make that choice if I wanted to. I could do it. Anything that he's saying, anything that your brother can do, you are capable of yourself. So this is the knowledge you must release. You must find your rotten fruit and burst it open and rid yourself of the rot and cut off the branches that do not produce, that do not reflect the healthy, the holy genetics of health that is meant to be. This tree is supposed to be this beautiful tree of life, producing flowers and buds and delicious fruit, and in the image, and this comes from our seed, which is our soul. So apple seeds produce apple trees, right? Pear tree, olives produce olive trees. Our seed is our soul. This is God. We must produce God. We must be as God. We must be a reflection of this seed that is God, our soul. And when we do this, our fruit is ambrosia. It creates the ambrosia that makes us this beautiful thing. And we have to tend our tree, or he will do it for us, and we won't like it then. We won't like it because he has this righteousness. He has this protection. He protects children of God. This is what he does. Not everybody's a child of God, but for those that have gone insane, for those that reject their seed, that have that reject their mother, the earth, whom their roots are in, they have to go. And
What
they,
happens?
well, so from his point of view, these are the ones that are burned. So this is the biblical prophecy. They harvest time and the shaft will be burned. From another perspective, they're literally thrown into the sun. They're returned to the sun. They're returned into the heat and fire.
Recycled.
Yes, they return to stardust. They return
Yeah.
whence they came. It's not a punishment,
Yeah.
not hell. It is
Yeah.
simply an uncreation. It is simply an inability to be an expression of God in truth, an inability to evolve fully into this expression. And evolution shows this. The majority of species don't continue, they die off, they die away. And it's the few who are able to adapt and continue that produce these new trees, right? So it's not a punishment, it is choice we make
Yeah.
by our hearts. We make this within our heart, not our mind. It is a deliberate wanting to connect with the person next to us as though that person were God. Like, you are
Yes.
me, I am no different than you. I don't care what foul sins you have done on this earth. You are me and I am you. And how may I assist you? How may I show you compassion? Because you are me and I am you. This is the point of view that he is bringing.
Difficult one, isn't it? Too. It's a
It's
very mature. It
very,
takes a mature. Yeah. I.
very difficult.
Yeah.
And he's not saying that people need to be perfect. We don't
I
need to be
know, I know.
perfect
I
because
think the
we
sen
are
what I'm
developing.
hearing, maybe, yeah, sorry, just what I'm just as we'll wrap up because we're nearly 2 hours and I'm just conscious of the length as well.
Yes, yes.
We,
Oh, we could go on for days.
I know, and we can
We
come
have
back.
to cut it off at some
Yeah, I have
point.
to cut at some point and we can come back and do another, absolutely. But I suppose my sense of I mean, just I'm taking is it's key that we return firstly to the connection with our heart. That is how we sort of reconnect with this divine
Yeah,
matrix. And that now maybe I'm interpreting this incorrectly, although we are being called, I know, as you said, at a very mature level to hold that compassion regardless of what choice someone has made. At the same time, Archangel Michael, they seem to be saying that, well, at the end, it is up to each of us to tend to ourselves. And if what we're bearing fruit is rotting, at some point that is going to be returned to the sun, not in judgment, but is that what I'm feeling? Is that to do with as well where we are on the planet right now, that this cannot be sustained any longer? So if this is what is,
yeah. Well, and as a collective, there's no percentage that's going to be punished and percentage
I
that's going to be
know.
rewarded.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
all going to pass through the fire. We're
Yes.
all
Okay.
going to pass
Yeah.
through the fire. And it is the promise of those in the spiritual world that some will pass through the fire and not be burned. That is the promise.
Mm. Okay.
Everybody has to pass through, and our true nature is revealed within that fire. What we have said doesn't matter. What have we done? What actions and words have we, you know, used to lift up not so much ourselves, but others, because in lifting others, we are redeeming ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Meylora, today for all of that. And thank you all, Archangel Michael, all the different beings that assisted. And whoa,
They're
there's a
very blessed.
lot to absorb and digest, but it's gratefully received. Um, for those who maybe want to work with you privately, you do offer, don't you, qhht sessions, spiritual
I do.
companionship. Yeah.
Yes, I do
Like,
qhht healing sessions, but I have many clients that I call spiritual companions,
mm,
and we meet once a week, once a month, whatever their preference is, for an hour or two online on Zoom, and we do spiritual companionship. So they simply share of themselves, and I share with them whatever comes through for me from their guides or, inspired guidance as it is. And I have many clients, so that would be easier for people around the
The
world.
world,
I
yeah.
do
Funny.
QHD sessions,
Oh,
healing
but it's more
sessions in person.
okay.
And if I get enough interest in a certain area of the world, usually around 10 people who want to receive a QHHT, then I will travel there.
Yeah, very good. Who knows? We might get you back to Ireland.
Oh, I'd love to come back and see you.
Yes, you will. You will. It'll happen. They're
I
they're
think
they're
it will.
coming.
I
I can
think it
feel
will.
them coming from all corners. Or for anyone who listening who wants to come to Ireland and then maybe they can
Absolutely.
come and
What a
join us.
joy. What a joy that would be.
So thank you so much for your time today.
Sure.
It was such a joy, such a pleasure. I will put Meylora's contact details in the description box of the video on Substack, Spotify, and YouTube. And for those of you who are listening, and if you're enjoying the episodes, I'm on episode 71 now, do please share or subscribe or both
Wow.
because they're such amazing. I was just feeling it this morning and there was different words that came to me, but it was like giving a voice to the voiceless, but also voices of truth and freedom and giving opportunity for everyone to express who they truly are and remind us all of who we truly are and bring us back to the heart. And I think we all need that now. So do please share if you feel called as well as subscribing. And thank you so much for listening today. And until the next time, take care.